Okay. Good morning again. Is anyone there? Viera.
Yes.
Sorry, I keep asking, I keep discussing. I'm interested. Sorry about this.
No, all of us. It was quite interesting. No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I'm just joking.
Myself too. So.
No, listen. I understand because we have been teaching online for second year, and I can understand the person who is presenting keeps asking the question, and there is no answer from the other side. This is also the empathy why I try to be involved as well.
No, true. I agree completely. Okay, but apart this, may I ask to the students, maybe not students, but the participants, just to switch on their camera so we can see them. Is anyone there? Marta, Marco, Camilla, Antonello, are you there?
Yeah, we have already the camera on. I don't know, maybe you can.
Maybe I cannot see it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is anyone else up to you that react? Because I cannot play a solitaire here. I have to play this game with you.
Okay, I'm here too.
Marco, thank you. Hello, Holga. How are you?
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Okay. Carla, hello. Who else? This is not only because I'm going to present, is the fact that I'm going to ask you something. If you thought about your own gaming simulation structure, I don't pretend, ideas, thoughts about it. May I start from the Italian team? Did you think about something? No pretend, no pretending to have anything, but just the idea. Marco, Carla, Camilla, Marta, no one? Do you have some idea of what you want to develop or what you want to do for the gaming simulation? No. Okay, just to make effective this lecture, I will try to do something really quickly. So thank you so much to everybody. I will start sharing my screen. I will start sharing my screen and the presentation. That was supposed to, let's say, to do, let's say, to talk about it after your ideas on gaming simulation, but then I will just explain what is the meaning of talking about gaming simulation design. Okay, it seems that I cannot share. That's also interesting. Okay. Jana, Are you there? Okay, let's do in this way.
Sorry, Paola.
Yes,
Paola, this
yeah,
is Lucia.
yeah.
Are you sure that you cannot share the screen because it should be? Oh, there is Jana. Jana, we have some issue with Paola's Paola not able to share the screen. Can you help?
Ah, now I can. Okay, maybe you just allowed me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Can you see it? Because I can't share only. Can you see it?
Yes,
The
This is
presentation?
all right now. Now we can see yours. Now we can see your presentation.
Yes, because you know it's from the browser, so it has some problems. Okay, let's go quickly on the nature of gaming simulation and observation on design. When we talk about gaming simulation, as you remember, when we want to design something, this is there is a question that we have to ask ourselves: specification of objectives that are needed, and this is the first step. So the first step is, what do I wish to represent? But the second step is even more important. What do I wish not to represent? Because the topic itself does not clearly specify the system, your reference system of actors, stakeholders, interactions that you want to simulate, or interaction that you want to enlighten, and so on. So following the let's say, the quotation by Fowler Goodman, Alan wrote, games may deal with abstract concepts. The design of the games requires a clear specification of the setting and actors within which those concepts occur. So what does it mean? That if we can use, gaming simulation to enhance, to empower, to establish, to work on something that is more conceptual rather than practical. Games are perfect, but when you design them, you must have a clear specification of the setting and the actors. So there are no, something that can be left apart. So this is why I use a classical 5W law, that is why, who, what, when, where, and there are no specification and no specific order how to use these 5 questions. It depends on what is your starting point, what is your preparation, from where you are, let's say, beginning, and what you want to achieve. But if there is no specific point or order, there is something that you have to keep in mind, that we have 2 different levels of design. One is the meta level, and the other one is the game level of the game. So we have, let's say, work with these simple rules that are, common sense, because there are questions that we have to answer always in our interaction with the word, but we can look to this just to start to different paraphernalia. So if you remember yesterday, we said that gaming simulation is an interaction between these 3 different elements, or a mixture, balance, more or less balance, well balanced between the rules, or the rule or rules, and the simulation, that is the scenario. So when we start to think about, to design, we do some assumption. And the assumptions are dealing us with the word of simulation and with the roles. The interaction of these two domains, realm, are creating or generating some, let's say, rules. So the assumptions are related with the models. I talked yesterday about the models that we want to create, and the definition of the roles that are, generally speaking, are roles defined within a situation. So combining these two, we found the rules that are the interaction, how the two words interact together. In the simulation, of course, we can have the models, we can define an accounting system, a payoff model. We have to understand how to operate it, manually, by software, by intuition, whatever. And then it makes us to construct scenarios that is a sort of point of reference. And here we are with the, let's say, a complex world of gaming simulation design. So talking about the meta level and the game level of the 5 W questions is, is like on the meta level, you are working from the gaming simulation to the designer, from the real world, to the designer to the gaming simulation. So this is the order that you are looking through. And when you talk about the game level, the core is the real world. So it's a hidden one, is the one that is not immediately represented or interested in the answer to these 5 questions. Then there is this designer facilitator, and then there is the gaming simulation itself. So just briefly and quickly going through the 5W, we have, the first one is why. Why I want to use a gaming simulation. And this is the first question for you, because it's important to understand that nowadays, for instance, there is a word that I really don't like, to be honest, that is serious game or gamification. Gamification is somehow a simplification and, let's say, a really simplistic way to use the value of the game related to some behaviors or some questions that are regarding, for instance, right issues or whatever, or users and producers. So maybe gaming simulation is not needed for that. Maybe it could be better to use some other interactive, let's say, tools instead of a game that are more simple, and they could be more direct, and they could show a transparency that through, for instance, the process of gamification, we are, often are hidden. The other question that you have to answer is, yes, why do you think I'm here for? So this is a question that is regarding for both the facilitator and, remember, you are a designer. The facilitator, so the one that will use your game, because probably you're designing a game that is going to be used not by yourself, and about the player. The player sometimes is disoriented, is okay, why I'm here, what I have to do here. And talking about who, at this question, you have to think about, from 2 different levels. For instance, you have to think, the who is regarding who is going to, for instance, run, facilitate, who is the client, who is the user. Remember that the client and users are not the same person. Yesterday with Professor Vieira, we were talking about, how to use in a way to make people living in a village that is, for instance, in dismissed industrial area, how to use, let's say, or what think, or how they see themselves in that situation. So it's quite different, you know, because your client maybe is just the government that want to develop that area, but it could be a private company that want just, you know, dispossess or delocate someone, convincing them that they are, you know, trying to find a consensus. Or you have to think about who. Okay, we can design a gaming simulation, but it depends on what kind of gaming simulation, what is the level of complexity, is simple, is not simple. There is a topic that is quite sensitive, so we need a lot of work in advance before to design a game. So, and then there are some, let's say, more basic questions that are more practical questions. Who the people will be, as I said, for instance, the people in the village, how many do we need to select them? It is open to everybody. There is someone that can be marginalized by language. There is people that need someone that interpret, translate. What I mean is not only, I don't know, from Italian to English, or from Slovakian to Italian, but it's also some disabilities that you can have, that you have to think in advance. I played accidentally, for instance, with people that was, I mean, and they were just boys in the high school that were deaf, but I didn't know that. So no one advised me, no one told me this. And this is, you know, it makes people feel really disadvantaged to playing a gaming simulation. So about when? The time is really important in the gaming simulation. It does not to take too long. It has not to be too short. It can be you can reply and replay it, but it depends how many times you can run a different session. So when it should it be? It's in what at what time? If, for instance, if you are talking about the process of participation, like yesterday we talked about the Parco Baleno, the city of emotions, and we play it at the beginning of the process and during the process, so but not at the end of the process, because it was useless to do it. So you have to understand when you have to start and to use it, how long it must be, and do you need some timetable for the preparation in advance? One of the games that I showed to you, Vanti, that is Let's Tell to the Dinosaurs, in Italian Balla dire dinosauri, is a game about climate change that is affecting 3 different levels of urbanization, from the small village in the mountains to the big city on the flatland, to the small medium city in the facing on the water, on the sea. We had to prepare for 140 students, and we have to prepare a lot in advance. I mean, we worked for 2 months in order to prepare the session, just the game session. And it required a lot of preparation because we have invited people, we have some critics and so on. When and how can I do it? This is another important about what you are, why you are designing, and how you are designing your gaming simulation, because you have to be really clear about it. And more further, when you design it, you have to design it on schedule. We said a timetable, so you have to understand when it's better to start, to stop, to listen, to intervene, to talk, to negotiate. Is observers are needed. We need to be observed as a facilitator, because we need people to understand something. So as you can see, is quite complex. And what kind of criteria, if there is any, and what venue is preferable for your gaming simulation. So I played gaming simulation everywhere, even in a park lot. But of course, that requires a lot of experience, and you have to understand, let's say, what you can use as support for your, let's call it improvisation. It's better not to improvise, but it's better to be ready for different options, playing A, B, C, maybe even Z. And what is quite important, what experience, what kind of level of sharing, what kind of analysis. Do you think that you want someone to learn something? You want someone that give you information? There are different, let's say, goals to be reached, tasks to be accomplished. That's quite important to answer. And what will they expect? What they will they expect? With they, here we are talking about the users, and but at the same time also from the client. What kind of process you want? Is short, quick, a more different level of interaction, because you you want to have really use gaming simulation, and usually it's used in this way in the process of participation. So what kind of level, what kind of participation you want to have? What have the participants to do by themselves? And am I going to be a trainer or a facilitator in the game, or co-trainer, or am I just giving some guidelines for someone to follow, and then they have to design or develop further a game? One of example of it is I was yesterday looking to the Play 40. Is a really simple game. Too expensive, I think, for its simplicity, but this was designed by the Isa Hozoe, that is is a designer, industrial designer, and is a game based on cards, and is quite simple in the process, and it could be, enough if you want to work with other designers to find new ideas. So, but it's important to understand what kind of role you are going to have. Also, not the roles in the gaming simulation, not only in the role of facilitator, but what kind of role you have by own. This is, I think, is more going to do with ethic and in design, that and we share with other. All the other disciplines in design is even often forgotten. Needed different materials, equipment, is any transport needed, there is food. For instance, there is a gaming simulation that I really love, and I didn't use in the last 10 years, but I really loved. I use often in Krakow, in the Center of European Studies, with during my course there, the Resilient Game was the name of that course. That is SimSoc, Simulated Societies. In this game, we play for almost 5-6 hours. And one of the tasks is to achieve some tickets in order to be able to eat. If you don't have it, we just provide some food by charity, that is some water and crackers. So this is part of the gaming simulation, and you have to understand if it's that, or it's just, you need food because you are playing all day and you need a break, like we had 10 minutes ago. What do you want to give to in advance to the participants? Do they do something before? I mean, Dr. Prezanza, she was asking me, do we need to prepare in advance some material? Actually not, because in this, let's say, I assume that hypothetical gaming simulation for this summer school is made based on your experience during, you know, the lectures and the activities in the afternoon. So you don't need anything in advance. But there is also something that is often forgotten, because playing is a pleasant activity. So why have to pay someone to design a gaming simulation? Why have to pay someone to run a gaming simulation? And what is needed to be paid for? Sometimes even in the talking about participation process, I'm a bit against it, but I understand that sometimes, for instance, in some communities, we work with the Thai communities of farmers, and for them to spend half a day just in a training activity or participatory activity, it was half a day or 1 day lost in their daily economy. So it was also important to support this kind of activity. There could be some follow-up of this activity, and what kind of follow-up? With the participants, with the organization. For instance, if we are dealing with voice speaker of communities or communities leader as a gaming simulation, organizers and directors, do we have to do something further with the organization to develop, for instance, some local project? Then is different than to work with the government, for instance, or the administration, or with the community itself. So playing as with the farmers, as I mentioned before. What is best to think, that is just left unplanned? So what kind of activities you don't want to organize and you leave to the actions of players, for instance? And what I need to prepare in the sense of facilitator. What do I need to prepare? As a game designer, I have to answer to this question. Is just to give you an idea, almost my games are really simple. They can be just reply, just copying, or taking picture, or just taking some notes. And this is really important, because it depends who is the final facilitator and user. I also personally, I'm talking about myself, but a lot of people is working in this way. I try to make a standing alone gaming simulation. What I mean is that they can be just produced and used by facilitators for some purposes, and they could be even changed by the facilitators. But this is my approach. Some games like SimCity are really closed to anything. So even it's not a gaming simulation, urban gaming simulation, SimCity, even if it seems to be, it looks like, this is quite close. You have no choice to change anything. There are different access of different significant differences between something, and I have to think about it. So what language can be used? What outputs will be there? Do I need written record, a video, some notes, some maps, some calculations? Who will be responsible? Who is going to evaluate that? Are these going to be, spread and use in a different situation, or are there them a documentation, the result of instance for a gaming simulation documentation that can, or data that can be used by someone else as outputs. And yes, again, what I'm doing here, I hope that I will know. So if you remember yesterday, I said what was the role of facilitator, and I also told you what is the definition of gaming simulation, that I want just to repeat again, that the gaming simulation, as they are defined, are training techniques for professional and practitioner, and learning techniques for students and researchers. And the gaming simulation may be defined as the simulation of the effects of decisions made through the assumptions of roles governed by rules, which I already mentioned is a mixed balance between role, simulation, and game, and in which the simulation concerns a model. Let's say, of course, gaming simulation is a teaching and communication instruments, and of course is also research instruments. And you have to keep in mind, because when you want to design a gaming simulation, you have to understand, as I told before, what is your purpose: to teach, communicate, to research something. And you have to remember that as designer, that all games and gaming simulation are combination of personal choice and also personal chance, that you have the chance to have, for instance, an expert, as I had, an expert in environmental issues, and therefore you can, you know, explore and exploit also, and explore more for this purpose. But for instance, chance, of course, is less relevant of choice if your goal is to teach or to learn. And chance is also, you know, this is another controversial issue for me when we talk about gamification. We use some kind of a typology, let's say, of games that are games where you can use the chance. But the chance, like the definition by using that the chance doesn't produce that much learning. It can produce some statistics. You can apply some probability law, but nothing else. So we have in gaming simulation, nevertheless, is a part of the simulation. So because we choose something, but as we are simulating a system and we have a model, often we use stochastical model, probabilistic model, and there, you know, the chance play an important role. However, it's really important to empower the role of choice instead of chance. So you don't have to use the dice, not much. You can use it, but not much in a gaming simulation. Meanwhile, choice and chance have the same, let's say, weight when you are talking about research, because, as I said, you are talking about probability law or other things that are issue different than when you apply for learning or for, let's say, training. As I said again, this is the three elements. Let's say what is important to remind here is this last quote. A decision from the beginning by the designer is sometimes the result of evaluation after the trial. So if you put more weight on, you know, on the role level, so we have more a gaming simulation that is more a role play, or you are putting a lot on the probability and the accounting system, that is the simulation, the model, or the scenario, because you are using a case study. This is, you decide from the beginning. And yeah, sometimes you adjust it through the trials, the test of the gaming simulation. Never tries a new gaming simulation without a lot of trials. But nevertheless, doesn't matter. In my experience, that this doesn't affect the success of gaming simulation. So just to sum up a bit of the design process, you have here 8 steps. That is, you have to describe why. Okay, what is your intention to build a game? You have to set a scenario. You have to define the roles or the actors. You have to define the game rules. You have to build an accounting system. Remember, that must be updated, and that give the idea what are the relationship among the stakeholders and between them and the structure of the game. You have to select what you need as artifacts. You have to construct, not only to design a prototype of the game. You have to run during session during the development. And this is absolutely needed, because even if you are really an expert, we design a gaming simulation for civic participation for another project that we have with Jana, that is Share and Koine, and about citizenship. And it was designed, I mean, my role, even I think that I don't appear among the authors, but the other 2 authors were a famous game designer, Italian game designer, and they're really experienced. And the game is not so complex as a structure. Nevertheless, we have to test it. We have to redefine. We have to spend a lot of time among us, for instance, to understand the sensitivity of some issues about diversity and so on. And what, let's say, is important, that luckily have a good assistant, because being not a really, not a distract person, but you have to document the game, because it's important. It ends in the manual for the facilitator, because, for instance, in some trials, you decide that there are some weaknesses, but you still keep them there, because it's important to leave some, let's say, blurring area in the gaming actions, and but you have to be aware of it and warn the facilitators, the future facilitators, and also in a way the participants, because it's needed. And you have to put in these also documentation, graphics, artifacts that they can be produced, etc. There are some suggestions that how to design the decision steps, really practical one coming from experience. The decision could be in the hands of individual players, or making decisions in small groups. This is a quite big, it doesn't seem so, but it's a quite big issue. In fact, I don't believe in massive gaming simulation. It doesn't work. I mean, this is just playing activities, or it's not gaming simulation. And when you are deciding for groups, use, of course, you must have only two players, but if possible, have maximum of 5 players, and use always unpair numbers. Because in small groups, the players are stimulated to use logic, to understand, and to argument. So if I have to face other two people, I can have not only the stimulus and not only the will, also the stimulus to, you know, to talk, to try to understand the other, and to use to drag on my part, for instance, them on my opinion, to convince to them. So it's easier, this kind, a high level of interaction, because I'm forced somehow to communicate, and because I have to justify my decision, and sometimes I can teach also the other my skill. When I use why one player, why three players, why more players. This is, for me personally, is also coming from my experience, and this is quite important. You have to decide for one player. For instance, if your aim is to understand loneliness or isolation. So if it's important to stress the point of information that is more important than communication or learning of certain decision, one player will spare you time and energy. So it's, you know, if the focus is on information, let's do one player. But remember that a single will often behave as a whimsical or arbitrary fashion. And I can tell you, because I'm a player, and when I am in some gaming simulation where I have, you know, to be alone in my decision, I can behave even out of my usual personality. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that if you want just one, so you have no control in the behavior. So why three players? For instance, be aware that sometimes you have just two players, but with the strong personality, and they want, you know, to decide. They have different conflicting, let's say, opinions, and this is increasing the level of conflict and internal in the game, and is also, you know, decreasing the quality of the gaming action and the quality, and increasing the time that is spent in order to negotiate for you as facilitator, for instance. So the more three is the really ideal one, because more than three will increase the length of time decision. You know, it is larger. When you want to, why you want to have more players, or is preferable to have more players? For instance, if you want to be more focused in debate, as in a public hearing or discussion, just people to discuss, okay, that's perfect. You don't want to have a decision on something, but more on the process of communication, that's perfect. For instance, more players, let's say, could be useful when you have a fixed time, the rules to be strictly respected, and because, you know, if you have few people, it can kill the game. When you have to have more players, is when, again, as in forcing the topic of the discussion and debate, you want also to have a result from it. So just for instance, information. Something else that you have to remember, there is an end to the design process. The design, let's say, designing gaming simulation. Yesterday, I was talking to you this gaming simulation that unfortunately I don't run anymore, but is a problem of the accounting system that is based on old software. Two games that I don't run anymore, and these two games are, you know, started in the 80s, and I play with them till tens of 2000s. So it means that there are, you know, a lot of interactions, and I change a lot this game through some iteration of this process, and the games improved. The last one, as I told you, was, you know, I was thinking like yesterday, this game about Venice, and it was so sad because we design not the utopia that we want, but we designed the real trend for Venice, how the city would be. So there are also some other points, let's say, to be taken into consideration, that is about the testing and trials. At least 5 times is the time, the last, the minimum that is required. Okay. Any question? Any question from the audience? I reached the 40, so if even tomorrow we are going not to have, you know, something feedback from the participants, I will just show to you another example, that is the rival gaming simulation design for urban activities, that is going to be the rival city game. So if there are no...
Paula, maybe it's a good idea to show us tomorrow more on the gaming simulation, because I think that now I see one of our students from my university. It's a very new topic for us, and honestly, maybe we do not know what to expect and what to really imagine if you say gaming simulation. That's the truth, because it's a completely new topic. I think that for Italian team, they are almost used to use this. I mean, like, they have some experience. But when I listen to you, I still just find myself a little bit like, it's interesting, but I don't know where I am moving. I mean, like, what can I say? What can I suggest? I should maybe be more clever in architecture to be able to say something. I mean, like, just it's great, but, you know, maybe we need more time to...
Yes, sure. No problem. I will give another half an hour tomorrow, and then maybe we can consider it as a part of the summer school and then develop it in the future. No problem at all.
Yeah, actually, I would like, this is what I wanted to ask you. Of course, nowadays it's not possible to organize some workshop, but gaming and games as such, it's better when we experience it, because to me it's really interesting topic, because I would like actually to put it in the reality, and I can imagine where, but I don't have any experience. And I wanted to ask you, Paula, if there is, sorry, I didn't put the camera on, there is, or is there any documentation you have, pictures and also results, concrete results on a concrete project where you have applied gaming simulations?
Yes, there are. You have to think that actually gaming simulation, because this is gamification that is used. So the games now are applied everywhere for everything. But till, let's say, tens of this millennium, they were considered just something that, you know, you can play with the kids, or you can play in the school. For instance, there is, I don't know if these students, Italian students, play ALAC. I don't remember in the first year. But usually when I play this gaming simulation with the students in the first year, in one day, they understand what is the meaning of, let's say, city as a complex system. Instead, you know, you run all the course in one day, they understand it. But talking about specific project, till now, I have many, but you know, usually they are used to inform, or usually they are used to spread information. I mean, to get information from, in the participation, for instance, from people. There are no decision made by, you know, using gaming simulation.
Okay.
Yeah. And Paula, you know what's interesting also for me, and I think for Viera, we can play, but play in appropriate way. I mean, to play good, to play for having a result, because we can play, of course, but you know, with special, I don't want to say educational aim, not educational, but you know, something like aim we want to reach by playing. And this is maybe the what I'm asking myself all the time, that how I can manage a play to be really, I mean, let's say good in terms of proving something, or just having a reach the goal and the aim of it.
There are a lot of examples for this. You have to consider that is a different perspective to run participation. So through participation, we reach goals, right? We accomplish some tasks. Using gaming simulation, you can do it in easily and in more direct way. Sorry.
Yeah, you should drink water, Paula, because yes, you are talking too much.
Sorry, because I tried to make everything shorter without pause.
Yes.
Sorry. But we can, I mean, there are a lot of examples. This is nothing that was created yesterday. This is a tool that has an ancient root, but anyhow, it was started to be used in my realm, not business even before, but in my realm is since let's say 50s. So,
and maybe sorry, but if there are some good practices, because of course we can, you know, something that can help us to avoid mistakes in making or in playing. So maybe this is very interesting for many of us, how to make it, you know, how to apply to these best practices into this gaming simulations. Because honestly, still, I look at the presentation and I try to be very concentrate, but it's quite a little bit abstract. I mean, like, you know.
Sure. In fact, my intention was to present the second one, or to discuss on the topic with the participants in the real one. So that was why I asked, do you have an idea? You know, because everyone has idea how to use games. There is no expertise in that. Everybody is a natural one. Drive this and guide this to for some purpose. This is another matter.
Yes.
Paula, I'm going actually back to the example you gave us the other day. I think it was yesterday. Drawing the pictures when the children from L'Aquila were drawing the pictures and well, showing their ideas, their interest, or their desires, how they would like to have the new building of the school, whatever. This is for me a practical example you gave us today. But what I'm interested in, do you need then some psychological, some psychologist, some expert, this is how I imagine it, to analyze the ideas, the pictures, you know, because, okay, sometimes you see a child drawing mom, dad, and himself, and whatever, and the seaside, and then you can understand. Okay, the child would like to go.
Yeah. Viera disappeared.
Yes, she disappeared.
Viera, are you there?
I'm here, but I don't know what I can't see. I can't switch on the camera. But did you hear the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's say there are different level of playing. The fact that I'm adding the word simulation, it implies that we have to do to work with some practical task. So even if I use City of Emotion with the students of Emilia, I mean, was Novi di Modena, not L'Aquila, but with Emilia, it doesn't mean that we were talking to them about their express your emotion about something. No, we ask them to think what kind of emotion can be given by a wonderful place like a playground for them or a natural environment where they can play. So it's a different level. In the case that you mentioned, of course, if I have to ask them, make a map of your emotion about what happened, in that case, I need a psychologist. But in our case, we need just the teachers at the school. So they help us to understand, you know, how to deal with the students, I mean, the kids. But this is why I always say I'm talking about gaming simulation. I'm not talking about game theory. I'm not talking about games. This is specific domains. This is, for me, is a tool that can be used in order for people to interact, to communicate, to understand, to give their ideas, but in a practical way. So based on a model or simulation, whatever. You will see tomorrow, I will present this rival city, and I will present 2 cases where the rival city was applied on the problem of migration.
This is what I wanted. Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Cheers.
Yes.
If there are no other, I'm sorry that I kept the audience. I'm really sorry that I kept the audience one hour more. For the Italian team, we are going to meet in teams, in our teams, in 10 minutes. Is it okay?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. For the others, I don't know. Jana.
Yeah, I will manage. I will manage, so it's okay.
Oh, do we need, it's better that we meet, I mean, 4 of us or no?
Oh, I don't know. It depends.
My only question is for tomorrow link.
Mm-hmm.
Because Patrizia tried, but she didn't know how to do from Teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if I can just ask Lucia. If Lucia, are you there?
Maybe, Paola, we will finish this lecture and we will stay together. I mean, like you, Zana,
Okay.
me, and Lucia.
Okay. Okay.
So now it's time to maybe close the session. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much to everybody, and we will give you the material.
Yes.
Thank you.
And just one message for Victoria. I will. Oh no, she's leaving. So because so she left.